Well, Sarah and Carrie, I think we'll go ahead and we'll jump in here. We're shortly afternoon Eastern time. Let me start with a good afternoon for those that are in the Eastern time zone, and on behalf of the entire Gryphon Financial Partners team, welcome to our second quarter webinar for cyber attacks. What can you do to help protect yourself? My name is Randy Bellner. I'm managing executive here at Gryphon, and let me start with a sincere thank you to all of our clients for entrusting us and allowing us to serve you. For our potential clients and others joining the call today, we appreciate the opportunity to share some insight and look forward to any opportunity to learn about anything more about you and your objectives. Our purpose at Gryphon is quite simple. It's to make people's lives better. And everyone on this team is committed to ensuring that we're doing everything possible to deliver on that objective. I am extremely excited today to have Carrie Terry, account executive, and Sarah Rosen, managing director from BlackCloak. BlackCloak provides cybersecurity and digital privacy protection for high net worth and high profile individuals in their personal lives. Think of things like online privacy, personal devices, and home networks that impact reputation risk, identity theft, and safeguarding of your finances. Carrie and Sarah bring a wealth of experience and expertise in this area, and we appreciate both of them joining us and spending time with us today. Sarah and Carrie will take us through a little bit of an education process, and we received several questions from all of you. And I will moderate a question and answer session after their presentation. And for any questions that we do not get answered, please reach out to your Gryphon advisor, and we'll make certain that you get a response. In addition to that, if you're interested, you can also ask your advisor for some of the summaries that BlackCloak provided to us. Things like tips on identity theft, data breach, as well as travel, and a checklist that you can use to identify gaps and opportunities when you think about your own personal digital security. You know, the frequency and impact of cyber attacks, Carrie and Sarah, I've seen, it continues to accelerate, and our artificial intelligence apparently seems to be a game changer. I think I read cyber attacks might be up 44+% on a year-over-year basis. I was just reading last Friday in the journal, Aflac announced that it had a cyber attack on it. We've had heightened security with Iran, and I think we've all received those fake text messages at some point or another. So excited to have you both here today. Thank you very much. We're looking forward to our time together, and I'll turn the session over to both of you. Thanks.
Well, thank you so much, Randy. Thanks for the warm welcome. And Sarah and I are really happy to be here. I'll kick things off with the presentation and give you an idea of our agenda today. So really, Sarah and I are going to kind of give you a nice level set and talk about what's really happening in the world and why are high net worth individuals interesting targets for cyber criminals. And then we'll close out with real things you and your family can implement in your life to help you stay safe from all these cyber attacks that we'll talk about today. And then at the very end, we'll just talk really at a high level about what is BlackCloak, what do we do for our members, and how you can get in touch with us if you're interested in learning more. So just to kind of set the stage, when you think about cyber criminals, it seems like their tactics are constantly changing. Like Randy mentioned, there's news stories constantly about cyber attacks that are happening and various scams. There's a lot going on. And really, these cyber criminals are becoming more and more sophisticated, and their tactics are constantly changing. And when you think about your home, for example, on the next slide, Sarah, thank you. When you think about your home, maybe you have visitors coming in and out of your home, maybe connecting to your Wi-Fi. Maybe you have kids and neighborhood kids running around your house, clicking on tablets and playing with different things. Maybe you have Savant or Crestron or some home automation systems. Even Alexas and Ring doorbells can create vulnerabilities. And even as simple as a smart TV. All of these things are really just too hard for one individual or one family to manage. So now I'll hand it over to Sarah, who's going to give you a sense of really what is cybercrime, how do these cyber criminals and bad actors get your information, and then what do they do with it?
Thanks, Carrie. I appreciate it. I do think it's important. So, Carrie and I are working directly with families and with wealth advisors, similar to yourselves. And a lot of times they are coming to us in a state of curiosity, looking for a solution to cybersecurity, or potentially panic if they're in the middle of a cyber attack. And one thing that Carrie and I have noticed is a lot of times folks are looking for a solution to a problem they don't understand, right? Cybersecurity is this big, complicated sort of nest of technologies and scammers and elements to it. And so we try and break down what the problem actually is so that you're a bit more educated either to implement some of the recommendations we're going to make today or to look for a comprehensive solution like BlackCloak. And so when you look at cybercrime, right, when we think about the bad guys, what are they doing, right? We hear about data breaches. Aflac example is a great one, Randy. What does that mean? So the data is out there. I understand that, data can lead to something. And here's what's essentially happening. So there's all of this seemingly innocuous information about all of us. And there's some that we know about. Aflac is probably releasing some sort of either financial or personal information. There's some we might not think about. So if you've sold your house or bought your house recently, the floor plan to your house is available most likely on Zillow, if that was included in the listing. Social media is an obvious component, but the bad guys are ultimately taking this seemingly innocuous information. They want to do one of three things, or multiple of three things, I should say. Either they're trying to trick you. So, do they have enough information about you, potentially, let's say, about your wealth advisor, in order to trick you into believing they are your wealth advisor. They are Apple. They are your server. They are somebody in your life that you would trust. Were they able to gather enough information from this batch of seemingly innocuous to trick your computer? Meaning, could they get onto your email, right? They found an old password on the dark web. Let's say it was Fuzzy Bunny 123, and you're clever the way I often am, and you add an exclamation point and a 24 at the end of it, right? They could easily take that and, for example, get into your email if you're using some variation of that. Or the third is to trick your third party. So a great example of a third party is your cell phone carrier. Do I have enough information to walk into AT&T and pretend that I'm Carrie Terry, right? And it's actually not that hard if you think about what they're asking for in terms of verification. And if I can convince the folks at the AT&T store I'm Carrie Terry, they will take all of the information pointed at her cell phone and they will now point it at my cell phone thinking I'm Carrie Terry. And if I don't have enough information to convince them I'm Carrie Terry, the going rate is $5,000 to bribe them to switch from one to the other. So we see this all of the time. And the reason they're trying to trick you, your advice your third parties, is that's where the good information is, right? That's where the information is that they can use to pull off a heist. And I use that word heist very, very deliberately. And here's why. All of you are likely familiar with the common scam. So we've all gotten a text message from the local highway patrol that something bad is going to happen if we don't give them money, right? And these I consider long tail hackers. They are going after me. They are sending these scams to the masses, hoping that 10, 15 people will be tricked, each of which will maybe yield them $100. The attackers that are most likely attracted to everybody on this call, I call them Ocean's 11 hackers. So if you've ever seen the movie Ocean's 11, the entire movies are all about planning, planning, planning the heist, right? And then at the very end, they pull off the heist. I use that term deliberately so you're aware that this type of hacker, they're willing to invest an immense amount of time and resources in a target. So if they've decided, if they have set on you as a target for whatever reason, they absolutely, if they're able to get into your email, they'll sit there and watch you, study you like a mark through your email for a year. We see it every single week. They'll sit there for a year and think about all the information you can gather from your email, right? Think about all of the attachments and details and, years and years of data. And all of it independently may not be challenging, seemingly innocuous, but together they could probably do some really big damage. And so, yes, BlackCloak, everything we're talking about today, it will help with those sort of standard scams, reducing um, um, uh, uh, unwanted calls and all of those details. But I think it's really important to know that there is this elevated level of bad guy, right? It doesn't get much news because it's a small group of individuals who unfortunately do suffer a loss as a result of these guys, rarely report it. It's a little bit embarrassing, right, in lots of regards. And so it's hidden otherwise than BlackCloak talking a bit about it for everybody. So let me pause there. Understanding seemingly innocuous information, using it to access the areas where your information is kept or your security settings are established in order to pull off the heist, usually financial or reputation damage. So there's a few things that you can do independent of seeking out a service like BlackCloak here and now with your knowledge, however technical or non-technical you might be. And the first is to understand data brokers. So if we go back to the beginning, the seemingly innocuous information for these bad guys, they are similar to a car thief. So if a car thief shows up at the airport, they're going to steal a car, right? The question is, are they going to steal your car? And if you take some basic measures, roll up your windows, right? Make that blinky thing go on, maybe put the club, I don't even know if that still exists, across the steering wheel. Too much of a bother. They're going to go on to the next car because that's just too challenging. And so step one is really just making yourself a smaller target. And the way you make yourself a smaller target is you reduce the amount of seemingly innocuous information they have to work with, right? It's a creative endeavor. While these guys are technical, their real skill set is getting creative with what they do with that data. There's something called a data broker. There are about 460 of these. They're firms. You've probably heard of them. If you've ever Googled somebody's telephone number or address and it comes up, and for $1.99, you can learn everything about them. That's a data broker. And data brokers are totally legal businesses, but they're a little bit dodgy because they are selling information. So if they get into trouble, they will close down and start up under a new name. Nobody really knows exactly how many of them there are. They do have to take your information down if you ask them. Now, the challenge here is there's no regulation. So they each get to make up their own rules. So one data broker might say you have to ask on a Monday and we'll take it down for 7 days. And another one might say you have to ask on the first of the month and we'll take it down for 6 weeks. And so as you think about 460 different set of rules, it can be extremely overwhelming for any individual to minimize their data broker footprint. Good news, there's lots of services out there that'll do it for you. It is included in the BlackCloak service. And then being cognizant of personal information online. A lot of this has to do with the deep web and dark web. We hear about breaches, right? And what a breach ultimately is the bad guys were able to break into a corporation and steal their data. Now, the reason they want to steal their data is they want to make money. So they might try a ransom approach and try and sell it back to the company, right? They might bring it to the dark web where there are forums where that data is bought and sold along with a lot of other nefarious activities on the dark web, which is sort of the seedy underbelly of the internet. In selling that data, they're selling it to bad guys, and the bad guys are using it to trick you, your devices, or your third parties. And so knowing what is on the dark web, you cannot remove information from the dark web. It is a lawless place, but there's actions you can take if you know what data is available. You should assume your social security number is on the dark web. We are pretty confident that all American social security numbers are now for sale on the dark web based on a breach that occurred last August called the NPD breach. And it was one of the biggest data brokers. And if we do the math of the amount of information sold and the number of Americans. So that's a great example. Assume your social security number is on the dark web. What should you do about it? Put a credit freeze in place. Ideally, a fraud alert. You only have to do that on one of the 3 credit bureau services, but put a credit freeze in place. Credit freeze applies to all new credit. So if you go to buy a car without much planning in advance and your credit is frozen, you actually can unfreeze it. You can thaw it for a day or 2. It's very easy to turn around. It requires a few steps. You're not locked into anything. And it is the best possible way to protect against the use of that social security number in the most common form, which is in fact from a credit standpoint. Stolen passwords, as I mentioned, it is really important that we are using fresh and secure passwords on our key accounts. We'll talk about what those key accounts are. If you're like me, you have the thought of changing all of your online passwords is beyond comprehension, right? There's probably 90 or 100 different sites that have a password to. Don't worry, we can narrow it in on the 6 to 8 really important types of sites that need that secure password. But recognize that if you've ever used that go-to password, right? The one you always know. So you're going to put it in Nike.com or otherwise. If you ever use it for financial accounts or really anywhere, and it has been part of a breach, which one should assume it has if you've been using it for a number of years, it is very easy with AI for the bad guys to figure out any pattern if you're using any form of it. All right. Okay, so what is the nature and scope of this problem? I think we all, there's no convincing that this is a problem. Everybody who's probably attended this call has had some interaction, friend of a friend or a family member has had some interaction in this area. But BlackCloak, so we work exclusively with high net worth, high profile individuals, and we are protecting their cybersecurity and digital privacy in their personal lives. So this data set is based on our tens of thousands of families who are protected by BlackCloak. And as we onboard them, that's where most of these stats come from. And 7 in 10 households have exposed passwords online. Somewhere within the family unit, household unit, a password has been stolen and breached. Probably not surprising to anywhere. And 1 in 4 of our new clients, households we welcome into the membership, we initially do a bit of an audit to understand like what's going on, what do we need to fix, are you secure? And in those audits, we find that 1 in 4 have malware on a device. So 1 in 4 households already have malware on a device. Chances are really good someone in your house where has malware on one of the devices. Now, malware varies in terms of, what it can do and otherwise, but that is an alarming stat. We all live in smart homes. So this is saying 1 in 5 families live in smart homes. I travel the country and talk to families like you day after day, week after week. 100% of us, let's say 99% of us have a smartphone. If you have Netflix on your smart TV, it's a smart house. And what that means is devices are connected to the internet. And if devices are connected to the internet, then if somebody is able to get into your internet, they can access a lot of information from that device. And then for those of you who either have a family office or working with family offices, they are the perfect target, the perfect target. And if you think about historically, bad guys are trying to break into corporations to steal the data to sell in the dark web, the breach we talked about earlier. It is really, really hard to break into a corporation. Home Depot, for example, has tens of thousands, at least thousands, I don't know the exact number, tens of thousands of individuals just protecting Home Depot from a cybersecurity standpoint. So to break into Home Depot and steal their data, very, 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 very complex and challenging. To break into the, for example, Wi-Fi of the CEO of Home Depot, whose Wi-Fi was maybe set up by their 16-year-old son in their home, gee, that seems a lot easier. Even better, a family office with immense amount of assets and a staff of 3 individuals, none of whom are technology or cyber savvy. Think about how juicy that target is, right? That is shooting fish in a barrel for these bad guys. So if you add it all up, the conclusion is that, not 39%, you can assert 39% compromised across the board. Okay, so real things that we can do. We're going to talk about accounts. So these accounts are where the good information exists, whether it's an email account or a healthcare account. We're going to talk about the home. Your home has Wi-Fi, and the Wi-Fi is connected to a router, and the router gives access to all of the information that's being generated in your house. Think about a Ring doorbell or your Roomba. If you have one of those self-generated vacuums, right? It has the floor plan to your house as it by default. We're going to talk about devices. So we walk around with laptops and phones, right? The devices are a gateway to our accounts. So we need to secure them. And then potentially the hardest, humans, right? These bad guys are trying to trick us and they're very good at it. And so the more we know, the better prepared we are to spot the tricks. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, secure passwords, highly, highly recommend a password manager. They are a little tricky to set up. They're just not extremely intuitive to set up. Once they're set up, something BlackCloak can help with, they are ultimately a lifesaver. And really, you need to use them on 4 types of accounts. If you do nothing else, the single most important account, and if you think about multi-factor authentication, that's when you try and log in and it asks to send a code either to your email or to your text, and then you enter that code. That's multi-factor authentication. It's a great security measure to put in place. And if you do absolutely nothing after this call, add multi-factor authentication to your email. Email, above financial accounts, above healthcare, email is the single juiciest source of information for bad guys. If they can get into your email, the amount of damage they can do is alarming, and we see it all the time. So let's pretend I am Carrie's hacker, right? And I am able to get into Carrie's email. I can watch and figure out who her wealth advisor is. I have information. I know if he or she puts thanks or thank you at the end of the email. So even the little nuanced details. So when I pretend to be Carrie's wealth advisor and I try and intercept a request for a wire or a transfer of some sort, Carrie will not be able to detect it. There will be no clues. It will be so smooth that it will be undetectable. And that's quite frankly terrifying. Financial accounts are important. All of you have wealth advisors because you're working with Gryphon. I assure you that your wealth advisors have thought through the financial accounts, and those are relatively secure. That is why they fall as sort of second place in terms of securing them by nature of your relationship. They're already secured in some form. Healthcare accounts. This is particularly important if you, for instance, have a liquidity event or are high profile in any way, because healthcare information can be used to blackmail people. So if you think about sort of the use case of that healthcare information, it's particularly nefarious, potentially. And then social media, just a wealth of knowledge. I think with social media, yes, you do want to secure it because you don't want anybody impersonating you. But I think more importantly, you want to understand how the bad guys use social media data. So when you are posting, which we will never tell you not to, live your life, right? This is modern times. You are more educated to do so in understanding what type of information the bad guys are attracted to. Okay, protecting the home environment. So your home has Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi enters your home through a public IP address. The public IP address is public, just like a telephone number in the old days. There's nothing we can do about that. There's something then called a router, and the router is essentially what is protecting your public IP address and your devices. So think about it. If you think about a home, right, with 4 walls and a roof, the router would be similar to the doors and windows in your home, right? And there's very logical reasons you open your doors. I'm bringing in my groceries. Sure, my door's open. But there's also very logical reasons my front door would never be open, which is I'm on vacation in December. I live in Colorado, so my front door should not be open. And the challenge with the router is that its ports, the doors and windows are called ports, its ports can be inadvertently changed very easily. And the biggest reason they get inadvertently changed is because of IoT devices. So you have a perfectly secure router, you plug in a smart crock pot that your cousin gave you for your birthday, and without your knowledge, it swings the proverbial port door wide open. And now what was a secure router no longer is. I don't interact with my router. I talk about routers all day, and I wouldn't know how to interact with my router and check its security if I wanted to. And so this is really important to understand that the function of that router so that you can have conversations with your home automation vendor. Your home automation vendor, for example, sometimes they will leave a back window open, something that nobody's likely to notice, so that if you do have an issue, they don't have to, quote unquote, roll a truck to your house, right? By leaving that back door open, it allows them to support you remotely. But there's obviously a risk trade-off. BlackCloak will explain our solution. Ultimately, what we're doing is vulnerability scans on a weekly basis. And the reason the frequency is so important is that those those ports are inadvertently changed. In our experience across 52 weeks in a given year, 40% of the Wi-Fis of our clients will switch at one point within a given year from secure to unsecure. So this is a pretty common challenge. Devices. So you've got malware, and there was a few questions I think about malware, so we can dig into the details. Traditional malware, consumer grade malware, is fine. It's good. It's better than nothing for sure. And the way consumer grade malware actually works is, think about, it can look historically at what the bad guys have done and come to conclusions. So an example, using my house, four walls again, is if there is somebody on a ladder in front of my house at 2 a.m. jiggling a window in a black hoodie, we can assume that's a robber, right? We know enough about robbers. That is similar to what consumer grade malware can detect. If it's a known sort of series of events, they will detect it. So we feel as though it's about 60% effective overall. Better than nothing, 60% effective. Now, we use something called an EDR. It's an endpoint detection and response. It is actually enterprise grade malware. It's what every corporation uses in order for that malware functionality. There is nothing in between the consumer grade and this enterprise grade, and you can't really purchase the enterprise grade yourself. Technically, you can, but it requires a team of 10 individuals to man it, execute it, operate it. It's very sophisticated technology. But if you do not have an EDR, endpoint detection and response, available to you, certainly consumer malware is better than nothing. However, if we go back to those Ocean's 11 hackers, the folks that are targeting you, they're quite sophisticated. So they're most likely going to still get on the ladder, going to still jiggle the windows, but they're going to wear a yellow sweatshirt instead of a black sweatshirt, which traditional malware doesn't detect as a known pattern. So they're a little bit smarter than the malware. Ultimately, if there's a doubt, do not click, I think, is the best way to protect your devices. Similarly, if you ever receive a communication, if that communication instantly makes your blood pressure skyrocket, right? We've all gotten them. Like, I forgot to pay my taxes. Oh my God. Or somebody's been kidnapped, whatever it might be, telephone, email, otherwise. That is a very deliberate and effective tactic that the bad guys use. And the reason being is we are all human, and humans have certain functionality that we cannot control. And one of them is when we go into that fight and flight status, when we are activated emotionally in that way, we do not make good decisions, and it is impossible to do so. And they know it. So my biggest device recommendation under don't click is if you receive an email and your blood pressure skyrockets in a panic way, your first thought should be, wait, is this a scam? Pause, think, talk to another individual to bounce what's happening off another individual. And in the best case scenario, it is a scam and you're able to avoid it as opposed to something not so great happening. Harden the human. So understanding recent scams is really helpful. They tend to be interesting, right? If you're looking for them. I have Google alerts set up so I know the new scams coming through. I think you guys may be familiar with tech support scams. If I call Carrie and pretend I'm Apple and tell her I'm doing annual maintenance because we're Apple and we're such a great company that we love to proactively maintain your computer, I might believe it, right? Social media scams, ransomware, extortion. I think we're all familiar with them. There's one example of a more exotic scam. This was really popular around Christmas. It's died down a little bit. The reason I'm going to mention it is I would fall for this scam. I work in cybersecurity. I talk about this all day long, but if I hadn't read about it, if I wasn't aware of this scam, I would have fallen for it. And it's called brushing. And what they do is they will send you in the snail mail an item in the mail, and it'll be worth $20, $25, a mug, a baseball cap, that kind of thing. And inside will be a card, and the card will have a QR code, and it'll say, click here to find out who sent you this gift. 100%, if I didn't know that was a scam, I am clicking on that QR code to find out who sent me that gift. Surprise, surprise, it's malware. If you click on the QR code, the malware is going to go onto your device. And that is just sort of the idea of if you know it exists, you're so much better prepared. And a lot of the scams, all of these sort of high-level scams, are reported on fairly regularly in the news. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Carrie. We have now built up a problem, which is cybersecurity. Hopefully, we've educated you on what that problem looks like. Ideally, we've given you a lot of examples of what you can do here today, this afternoon, this weekend to minimize it. But we also just want to mention that there is a solution called BlackCloak that's more comprehensive. And part of it is we've just put a big problem on your plate, right? The least we can do is also articulate the solution that we've created in order to solve that problem.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sarah. And Randy, do you think I could spend 5 minutes on there? I just wanted to check on time, or would you like me to trim it down a little bit?
No, you absolutely can. We can do, you can go now. We'll do that. Then we'll go back to a few questions and answer session a little bit. So yeah, that's fine. Thanks.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. So thank you, Sarah, for that nice overview. And here is BlackCloak. We are the solution to all of the problems that Sarah outlined today. And we really look at the BlackCloak offering in these 4 buckets: protecting our clients' privacy, their devices, their homes, and ultimately providing peace of mind. So first, I'll start with the privacy piece. Earlier in the presentation, Sarah talked about how cyber criminals get all this kind of seemingly innocuous information and can use it for nefarious purposes. So one of our solutions is going to these public-facing data aggregator sites, and we are opting our clients out. There are hundreds and hundreds of these sites. It's kind of like the Wild West. They all kind of beat to their own drum, and it's really like a game of whack-a-mole. But we go to these sites on our client's behalf and remove their phone number, remove their email address, remove their relatives' names to make them a harder target. We call this concept shrinking the attack surface. We also help with the dark web, which Sarah mentioned is kind of the criminal underground of the internet. Unfortunately, when it comes to the dark web, you cannot remove information. However, it's still important to know what's out there and, more importantly, what you can do about it. So we are primarily focused on looking for our clients' passwords that have been breached. We scour the dark web and actually present that information to our clients and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Client, we found the password Fluffy Bunny. It was a part of this AT&T breach. Are you still using that password? And then we go a step further and really talk to them about password hygiene. What makes a strong, complex password? What are the dangers of reusing passwords? And we really try to make our clients' lives easier by introducing tools that can help them streamline things and just save time, which is a password manager, like Sarah mentioned. So part of the onboarding and consultative process at BlackCloak is training our clients on how to use a password manager, training them on how to use authenticator apps to make their lives and accounts much more secure. We also have a VPN, a virtual privacy network, built into the platform. Again, educating our clients on what is a VPN. And by the way, it's a virtual privacy network, which means if I have to connect to a public Wi-Fi, I can turn on a VPN, which creates this tunnel, and anybody else on that public Wi-Fi can't see my web traffic. So it's another security tool that we offer. As Sarah mentioned, we recommend everybody freeze their credit with Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. So again, we will handhold all of our members in doing that and helping them, what happens if they buy a car and they want to use credit to purchase their new car. We'll help them lift the freeze for 24 hours and then put the freeze back in place. So all those things will help with. Shifting gears now to talk about the cybersecurity piece. We have a robust security team, a 24/7 security operations center, monitoring all of our clients' personal devices to make sure they're free from malware. Sarah talked about some of the consumer grade solutions that are out there. That's great. Like she said, it's better than using nothing. We are using a enterprise grade tool, something that a large company or a large bank might use for their corporate devices, which is backed by our 24/7 SOC, the security operations team. So in other words, we're monitoring in the background just to make sure everything looks okay. We'll block any malicious or suspicious downloads from being installed onto your machine. And if anything bad happens, the incident response and remediation is all included in the offering. As a matter of fact, 30% of the people who join BlackCloak are in a reactive state. So they've fallen victim to a scam, or like Sarah talked about, we see a lot of email compromises where a bad actor is actually living inside your email and rerouting your emails and trying to get, a nice wire to go out to them instead of who it's supposed to. And we also have an app. We have a BlackCloak app on our clients' phones, tablets, and computers, which is a personalized dashboard into everything that we're doing behind the scenes to protect our members. It's also a way to get in touch with our concierge team. So I'll jump to the providing peace of mind. We have a United States-based team of subject matter experts in all things privacy and cybersecurity that clients can leverage for unlimited support. So it could be, hey, I got this weird text message. Do I really owe, the Ohio tolls and they're going to take my license away? What should I do? Or, hey, I'm traveling to Spain with my family. What should I be thinking about when I'm traveling internationally? Or how do I connect to the Four Seasons, Wi-Fi when I'm traveling? Anything like that. We're here to really help you, be a guide and resource to help you navigate through all these crazy changing times like Sarah outlined so well for us. And then the last thing to talk about is how we protect our clients' homes. So every single week we do a home vulnerability scan. So what that means is we take our client's public facing IP address, their internet protocol address, and we see if we can hack into your home network, just like a bad actor would, a hacker would. So we're looking to see if there's any open windows or ports that aren't secured properly. And if we can get in, that means the bad guys can too. So there's a little bit more with the home that we do, but for the sake of time, that's a nice high level overview of the BlackCloak platform. Oh, and we operate on an annual subscription basis. Our plans for a household range from about $8,500 to $10K per family for the year. We define a family as a main adult, their spouse, and then kids 24 and under. However, for being a Gryphon Financial Partners client, you can take advantage of our discounted family plan, which is 6K for the year for your family. So back to you, Randy.
Yeah, thanks, Carrie. Thanks, Sarah. So we had a couple, actually have had a couple questions come in throughout. So I'm going to throw one out to you, and you covered a lot of the others. So one that literally came in was, if I use a password manager and that service gets hacked, would I not be more exposed than keeping the data out of the web cloud altogether?
Yeah, that's a good question. I can take that one, Sarah,
Sure,
if you
yeah.
want. So a lot of people that we talk to are using, reusing passwords. Maybe they download a password manager, they can't really figure out how to use it, or they're using the Apple keychain, which it's using the Apple keychains better than reusing passwords, especially breach passwords. However, we look at that as kind of putting all of your eggs in one basket, so to speak. If someone gets access to your iCloud account or you lose your device and they get into your account, they would obviously get access to all your passwords. The password manager we really like and we have vetted, there are dozens of them out there. We really like 1Password. It's the number one in the word password. The reason we like 1Password is they don't have backdoor access into your account. So you're responsible for setting up your account. You create this master password. We help you print off a recovery key. We tell you to put it in your safe. If you forget your master password, you need to reference this recovery key sheet you printed off. You cannot call 1Password and say, hey, can you reset my password? They're going to say, we can't help you. They don't have access to do that. So that's why we really like them. They've never had a breach. So
So
hopefully
you
that
literally have to
answers.
your authentication, like bury it in the backyard. So if you have to get it someday,
Right.
you got to go
Exactly.
get it. All right. Thanks. So we were talking about VPNs a minute ago. We had a couple clients that asked about Microsoft Defender. Is that one you would recommend? Others they should consider?
Yeah, so in terms of a VPN, what the VPN is ultimately doing is it's creating sort of a, let's call it a tunnel. Your data comes from your computer and it's creating a really secure tunnel. So if you use a train as an example, right, you've got the express train. It's the equivalent of the express train from your computer elsewhere. And so that's what creates a private road for your data. So any VPN is better than no VPN when you're on an unsecure Wi-Fi. When you're home, not important. Some industries, like finances, so if you're one of a wealth advisor or otherwise, you have a very secure, sophisticated VPN. And chances are really good it takes you 10 minutes to log into your computer in the morning, and it's probably extremely annoying. That is extremely secure. You have like your own road in space, right? And so there's varying degrees of safety. However, our VPN is very light. It's one click. You wouldn't know it's running in the background unless you're using United Wi-Fi like I do on a regular case, which it does not work great with. But any VPN is better than no VPN, and we strongly recommend it. Certainly at the airport, I personally wouldn't go near free Wi-Fi, airport Wi-Fi. It's too easy to dupe. Also hotels. I have to admit, I'm guilty of this in hotels. It feels secure, but those are also relatively easy to dupe. And so those are the two places or activities we strongly recommend a VPN, and our app prompts you to use a VPN. But no VPN is better than I'm sorry, a VPN is better than no VPN.
Yeah, better than that. Thanks, Sarah. There were a couple questions. So we have some clients that were asking questions around payment apps and payment applications. So think about PayPal, Venmo, Swipe, Zelle, Square. How secure are those? Are there things that you're the individual or the business owner should do to maybe even make them more secure?
I think the key to those type of payment apps is dual factor authentication. We probably said that 8 times today, but that's really the best thing you could do strong, unique passwords and dual factor authentication, ideally using an authenticator app such as Authy or Google Authenticator. That will make you way more secure. We also recommend our clients use something called virtual payment cards. There is a website you can check out called privacy.com, and you put your credit card in there, and then it generates a new code each time you purchase something online, so that if that website gets breached, you're not having to, get a whole new credit card. So that question, Randy, is a perfect use case of how you can leverage the BlackCloak concierge team for questions just like that. We provide advice and guidance and help with tips and tricks along the way too. But hopefully that helps.
Yeah, thanks, Carrie. Got another question around artificial intelligence. It's you can't listen to the news or hear everything's AI, and we're all using it in different ways. What are you seeing there? Is there anything we should be, our clients should be aware of as it relates to artificial intelligence and cyber threats?
You want me to take that one, Carrie?
Sure.
All right. So AI is interesting, right? It's sort of like, I think back, do you remember the Katie Couric, if you're older like me, the Katie Couric interview where they're talking about the internets and the World Wide Web when in 1996? That's exactly where we are right now with AI, right? We know practically nothing. But what we do know is it is going to make the bad guys more efficient. Good news, it's also going to make us, the good guys, more efficient, right? So it is a general purpose tool. Right now, what we're focused on is deep fakes because of our clientele, high net worth, high profile individuals, the likelihood of trying to trick you into thinking they're somebody you're not, and the sophistication of that technology, right? I could be talking to you right now and I could look like Angelina Jolie and you would absolutely believe I'm Angelina Jolie. It's really unbelievable what you can even do with the free apps. And so we're really focused, that's called deep fakes, and we're really focused on solving that problem right now so that if you are exchanging money, right? Myself and Randy are exchanging money. And I see Randy, I know Randy's voice, I can see him. That still isn't enough proof that Randy is Randy to me. And so through the BlackCloak app, we have a tool called ID verification, where in addition, I can ping Randy, I can pull out my phone, it knows it's me, I ping Randy, Randy receives a notification, Randy confirms Randy is Randy, or if Randy isn't Randy, Randy says, why are you trying to confirm something? It isn't me. So it's a very small, elegant solution to one particular problem that has been generated by AI.
Okay, thank you. We had a question, and we touched a little bit on this, data or information on personal cell phones. Anything we shouldn't be doing as it relates to our phones and cyber attacks and those sorts of things?
So we can send you, it's a hard question to answer, and here's why. If you look at the privacy settings on your phone, so if you go on your Apple phone under settings, there's like privacy, it's sort of towards the bottom. And then you click into that and you look at all the different toggles. It is not as all clear what those toggles do. And they're deliberately sort of evasive. Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? And so what we do, BlackCloak provides to our clients, is we do something called harden the devices. We are going to go through using the sort of PhD level knowledge we have of security settings, and we're going to make sure your settings are as secure as possible. The big sort of danger here is that you're going to leak data back onto the internet that you don't want there. Let's obvious example being location data. So phones are secure. You shouldn't be concerned about, phones or otherwise. It's the applications on the phone that have the passwords, right? So if you get it at the password level, if you make sure your security settings on the device are secure, and it's something you can Google online. Obviously, our team has the knowledge inherently, but it's not unknown information. You can find it on your own. But those two combined aspects really are going to make it so it's rather challenging to steal information off your phone. Oh, and the AT&T example. If your phone starts acting funny, if all of a sudden there isn't data or otherwise, you do want to be aware that SIM swapping, which is what I described earlier, if I walk into an AT&T store, that means somebody has successfully redirected your phone data to them. And that's obviously a bit of an emergency situation. You should call Carrie and I immediately if that happens. We can.
Okay.
Oh, one other tip for the phone, just make sure you don't ignore those your iOS updates, the system updates. Before I worked here, I've been here for 4 years, but before my time, I was always like, ignore, this is so annoying. But those patches and updates with the iOS system are really important. So just keep up with those. And I was going to see the latest version everybody should be on is iOS 18.5. So if you're on that version, you're up to date. But I don't think Apple does a good job of reminding us as much as they used to, but that's something the BlackCloak app does.
And by way of education, what's happening there? So if there's an update, if Apple sends a new update, they call it a patch, right? It's a change in their code. One of two things have happened. Either they're releasing a new product or feature, yay, or they have identified a wormhole in their code that the bad guys already know about. So you should take any update as urgent, because whatever the time between the update comes out and you decide to update your phone, there is a password, a known entryway for the bad guys to get onto your device that is only closed if you update the operating system. Hopefully that makes sense, but I think the why is really important to drive urgency.
Well, I think if I learned from your conversation earlier, that means we've opened up another window, a door to the house if we're not
Well,
installing
that's
it.
the router. Maybe you've
But
opened a window to your device. We'll put
to
it
your
that way.
device.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Last one, we had a question around spam calls and all the stuff that connected to the phone thing. Is there anything there clients can do to stop that, or is it just it is what it is?
We can send you a one pager, which Randy, we could have done in advance, apologies, but we can give you a few sort of guidelines of what to click. This is on iPhone specifically to reduce spam. And BlackCloak does have functionality that helps with it. I find with all of that in place, I have pretty reduced spam calls. A few get through, but I think using those two components together greatly reduces that. Also, removing your information from data brokers helps, because that is where people get the information that they put onto lists that they use to spam call you.
Okay. So I was writing down lots of things during our conversation. Once you said my social security number is out there and I can't use my Roomba anymore because it's, got my floor plan. So as we come to the conclusion, if you said one thing everybody should go check today from everything that you shared, what would it be? One thing we should do.
Sarah and I might have two different answers. My answer is implement dual factor authentication everywhere possible.
Okay.
I'm going to say the same thing, but I'm going to be more specific to email. And I think it sounds like a small thing, but Carrie and I see how unbelievably destructive it can be when somebody's been in somebody's email for a long time, like the vast nature of what they're able to do from a heist perspective. So I'm saying multi-factor authentication on your email.
That's
Okay.
a good one.
Got him. Well, hey, Sarah and Carrie, this has been very, very informative. Really appreciate you taking the time. And certainly if we have clients and others that reach out and want to learn more and can point in your direction, we absolutely will. I want to remind everybody on the call, number one, thank you again, as we said at the top, for allowing us to serve you and trusting us. Two, please do reach out. We do have some great stuff that BlackCloak has sent to us. Again, those tips and those tricks and those checklists, we'd be happy to share that with you, and would love to get your feedback on this session if you found it helpful and in some way help make your lives a little bit better today. So look forward to our next invitation. We'll have our next quarterly call probably in this late September time period. And if you have thoughts or ideas that you would love for us to cover, we'd love to hear from you. So thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Carrie. Appreciate everything today. And thanks to all of you. And we'll talk to you next time. Have a great day.